Some men vanish because they're scared, but a rare few disappear because they choose to. On a humid November morning, police knock on the door of a millionaire's island home. Inside, they expect fear. Instead, they find silence. No footprints, no bags, no breath, just a mattress still warm, and a hole in the sand outside big enough to hide a body. Only this time, the body was very much alive. This is the story of a man who didn't just run, he bent entire nations, cracked open their systems, mocked their pursuit, and stayed one step ahead until the world itself became his hunting ground. Welcome to Era 187. Before he was a fugitive, he was a coder who looked at chaos like it was a chessboard. Back in the late 80s, long before the internet shaped our nightmares, he saw a digital plague growing in the shadows, viruses crawling through floppy disks, silent, invisible, unstoppable. And he wrote the antidote, not from a lab, not with a team, but alone, on a dusty desk at midnight, crafting lines of code sharp enough to shield half the world's machines. People would call him a genius. He'd call himself bored. Because a man like him didn't want stability. He wanted threats. He needed storms. The more success he earned, the deeper his restlessness carved into him. Boardrooms, prison cells, investors, wardens, rules. A cage with better lighting. So he cashed out, broke free, and stepped into a world where society's rails couldn't hold him. A man unbound and unprotected. When he landed in a tiny Caribbean nation, he told people he came for peace. But men running from themselves never find peace. They build fortresses instead, high fences, hired muscle. Labs full of improvised experiments, dogs who listened better than people ever did. He lived like a king, laughed like a rebel, and watched the horizon like a hunted man. Neighbors whispered, officials warned. But he dismissed them as static, background noise in a world he believed was beneath him. Yet paranoia has a way of becoming prophecy. One night, his dogs, his closest guards, began convulsing. By dawn, they were gone, poisoned, and something inside him cracked. Not loudly, but enough to shift the gravity of everything he'd built. Because when a man's last line of trust dies at his feet, he stops caring what lines he's willing to cross. A day later, a neighbor was found on his villa floor. A single, cold shot to the back of the head, execution style, no signs of a struggle. Nothing stolen that mattered, just a message, written in blood instead of ink. The island froze, whispers turned to panic. Every finger pointed in the same direction, toward the millionaire with too many secrets and too little patience. Police arrived at his gate. But he had already vanished. They didn't know it yet. But they had just started a war with a man who had been preparing for it his entire life. He slipped through back roads, river shacks, fishermen's huts, moving like someone who had pre-written the script of his own escape. Roadblocks rose, helicopters circled, informants flipped. But he never stayed long enough to leave a shadow. He mapped hideouts the way a hacker maps vulnerabilities, silent, strategic, invisible. Authorities chased footprints. He left none, they hunted noise. He made silence. Every hour he evaded them, his myth grew sharper. Not a man, a glitch in their system. When the walls of the country finally tightened, he didn't fight the cage, he stepped around it. Under a moonless sky, he boarded a fishing boat, one engine coughing, one lantern flickering, and drifted across the border into a nation that didn't even know it was about to inherit a storm. But the storm got cocky. He contacted journalists, wanted to control the narrative, show the world his side of the story, but the world bites back. A single photo, one careless upload, carried GPS coordinates hidden in its data. And just like that, the ghost had a location. Police surrounded his hotel before breakfast. The man who once outran an entire government just got handcuffed by a metadata line, facing deportation to a place where he believed death waited with open arms. He collapsed dramatically in a jail cell, clutching his chest like the Reaper was pulling the cord. Doctors rushed, news exploded. 2 heart attacks, the headlines screamed. But in the quiet of a hospital bed, he whispered the truth. No heart attack. Just technique, breathing tricks, staged panic, and enough acting talent to stall a nation. It worked. He bought time, and with time, he bought freedom. When he finally stepped off a plane in the United States, he wasn't defeated. He was smiling. What followed wasn't a comeback, it was a transformation. He became a performer, mocking systems he once helped build, trolling governments, dipping into politics, riding the chaotic waves of early crypto markets. But behind the spectacle was a simple truth: he was still running. From taxes, from charges, from the ghosts of islands he would never see again. When the US finally indicted him, he didn't surrender. He boarded a yacht, a floating bunker, and drifted across seas for nearly 2 years, changing coasts, countries, and identities like outfits. He mocked the agencies chasing him. He tweeted false locations. He posted decoys. He blurred the line between genius and madness so often that even professionals couldn't track which one he was playing at any moment. He became a puzzle built by a man who hated being solved. Europe's borders were tight. COVID shut doors, exhaustion shut the rest. He stopped running, or maybe he released himself from the illusion of freedom. When police finally caught him at an airport scan, he didn't resist. He just exhaled, like a man who knew the final chapter had already been written. In a Spanish prison cell, he joked online, made friends, lifted spirits, and repeated one line again and again: "I'm not suicidal." But the day his extradition was approved, the walls closed in. By evening, he was found hanging, the man who outran entire nations, stopped by the only enemy he could never escape: time. Official reports say suicide, supporters say sabotage. Others whisper he faked one last escape. But whatever the truth is, one thing remains: a man who lived like a storm rarely dies like a drizzle. He once said, "It's better to burn out on your own terms than fade under someone else's." Maybe that's what this was. Not surrender, not defeat, just a final move. By a man who hated losing more than he loved breathing. If you want more deep dive Era 187 crime narratives with psychology, tension, and cinematic storytelling, like the video, drop a comment, share it with your crew, and hit subscribe. Your support is what fuels the next story we uncover.